Hello, my name is Vanessa Konecki, and welcome back to the Commitment to Clock Out series, the show where I walk you through my tactics and techniques for saving time in your day so that you can get 20 hours back a week from your job. That means that you can get more done each week, which means you will feel less behind and more on top of things. In the last episode, Conquering Your Email Inbox, we talked about how many of us don't know how often we interact with email. And so, to catch us up, I want to talk a little bit about how we actually do interact with email. Now, did you know that 70% of email alerts are attended to typically within just 6 seconds? And that most workers spend about 28% of their workday just reading and responding to emails. And we check our inboxes 74 times a day. Literally 74 times a day. Apparently, we also switch windows an average of 18 times each hour when we don't have access to email. Okay, so when we don't have access to email, we switch windows an average of 18 times each hour, which means we're focused. But 36 times per hour when we did have access to email, which means that email is distracting us a lot more than we think. And it takes an average of an additional 68 seconds to return to work and even remember what was it that I was doing before I stopped and went to that email. There was actually a study that was done a while back where the participants were asked how often they checked email, and they claimed that they were only doing it every 15 minutes or so, but the study actually showed that it was actually checked every 5 minutes or so. And here's the kicker, right? We talk about all of this email checking and how often we check our email and how often we're all tabbing, but studies show that checking your email more often makes you more stressed out. And a lot of us know this. So why do we check our email so often if we know it stresses us out? Now, you may think it's because we get so many emails that's why we keep checking them. But the truth is, we get a lot of junk mail at home too, and we don't read all of it, and it all doesn't stress us out. Most of it just goes into the trash and we don't think about it. But yet, when an email comes in 6 seconds later, there we are, checking it. So why do we keep checking it? First is because it's easy. Okay, it is easy to check email. We wouldn't check email so often if we had to climb a mountain or walk across the street every time. Second, there's an anticipation of like a random reward. Now, most emails are not that remarkable, but every so often you'll get one that gives you a hit of dopamine, and that's the one you were waiting for. And it's the hope that you're going to get another one of those emails that gives you a hit of dopamine that keeps you checking. Third is the completion bias. You want to finish it, get to inbox zero. Having too many emails makes us feel like there's something left to do and there's something left to finish. And it's a lot easier to blow through 10 quick but generally unimpactful emails in your inbox than it is to spend that same amount of time on a difficult but similarly timed task. It feels so much better to just delete 10 emails than it does to sit there for 10 minutes and maybe get through a single task. And then last, speaking of getting through tasks and going through emails, is it lets you feel like you're making progress on something. You can see the numbers going down, down, down. And that does have its benefits, and we're going to leverage that later. But if you think back to how often you remove 6 to 10 emails that took you 20 minutes, but didn't actually make any progress on anything, you'll see that most of us feel like we're making progress when we're doing email, but it really doesn't ultimately move the needle. And then, of course, there is the checking your email every 6 seconds because you either get off on being fast or you don't want to be the slow one in responding to emails. There are a variety of reasons why we might check our emails constantly, right? Whether we think we do or not. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot have a super full inbox and also be effective. Your emails are a list of tasks that your brain categorizes as things come in. And though it can be part of an incredible organizational system, most people don't use it that way. And often they have hundreds or in some cases thousands of emails in their inbox alone. The problem with using email as your to-do list is that it doesn't really show you how to prioritize. It doesn't have that visibly available. And so each email that you get needs to be prioritized. And your brain is always doing a complex calculation each time an email comes in to put it in the right order of priority. So that means that you're doing a lot of rearranging and a lot of the same work multiple times. Now, eventually, with enough emails coming in and not getting handled or enough reprioritization, you start to experience significant stress because of all of this work that you're doing simply to manage and organize your email. Now, let's be clear about what I'm talking about stress here, right? Stress is the experience of having too great a task to accomplish with too few resources to meet the demand. Email overload is just another way in which we experience that, in that there is too great a task, the huge list of to-do items, or the huge list of emails to handle. Oh, by the way, the resource is time. We don't have enough time to handle them all. Now, in the study mentioned above, the email overload had a lot to do with the stress response as measured psychologically and physiologically through heart rate and blood pressure and a measure of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Having a set of rules that you use for your emails will help to alleviate the pressure each time a new email comes in, reducing the individual amount of stress that you get. So let's talk about, how do you break your addiction to email if you're so used to checking in all the time for that dopamine hit and for all of the things that we talked about earlier? Well, we talked about how email is a very powerful part of a system of prioritization. So I want to pause briefly to highlight that the key to this strategy is really reframing how you think of all of the key elements that make up work and how they all fit together. So that instead of simply doing a bunch of things, answering a bunch of emails, doing a bunch of transfers, you've rearranged your activities so that they've created momentum and progress, and you no longer feel like you need to check your emails the day before you come back from work after a vacation, because you already know that you have a system that will get you right back on track. The purpose of making all these changes is not simply so that you can get a handle on your work. It's also to create a system that you trust, to help keep you on track even if you take time off, even if you're sick, even if you need to drop everything so that you can help with a giant grant that has to go in this week. You know you won't come back feeling like you have to dig yourself out of a mountain of work, because your system will help you through that process. One of the things I hear a lot is that people are afraid to go on One of the things I hear a lot is that research administrators are afraid to go on vacation because they're afraid of what they will come back to. In fact, I used to say things like that. And a few years ago, it was the first time that I piloted this process, first with myself and then with some friends and then with clients and now with you. Once you've implemented this system, that changes. You won't worry about going away because you'll have a system to support you when you come back. This alone is worth the effort of rethinking your approach to email, so you can take a vacation.
You are a psychologist. I tell you things you